This is Laurence Fox, Amy Gallagher, Howard Cox. Sorry. On my far left, we have...
I'm not on the far left.
No, we have Howard Cox. Howard Cox is a businessman and indeed the founder of the Fair Fuel UK campaign. He is the mayoral candidate and he's also standing for the London Assembly for the Reform Party. So that's Howard. Thank you. Welcome, Howard. Laurence Fox is founder and leader of the Reclaim Party. Obviously, he almost needs no introduction. He's also standing for the London Assembly. Very pleased he could make it. And finally, Amy Gallagher, who is the SDP's mayoral candidate. She's also the woman behind Stand Up to Woke, and she's also in the middle of a battle with the NHS, and you might see her weekly on Newspeak on our channel. So those are our three, I was about to say contestants. Those are, those are our three candidates. And basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to ask each one of them in 5 minutes to tell us why they are standing and what they can offer. And also then the floor is going to be open for you to question them. In other words, it's a hustings, you know? So it's very much, actually, the ball is in your court. But if I can start, therefore, first of all, with Howard. Howard Cox.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me, I'm shouting, I shouldn't be. Yes, the state of emergency in London is the reason why I'm standing, because for the last 15 years, I've been running a campaign called Fair Fuel UK. I don't know if anyone heard of that? Oh, great, okay. Well, I've stopped £200 billion of fuel duty rises in that time, and even the Minister of Energy, Claire Coutinho, is now adopting my pump watch proposals, and I've moved the 2030 ban to 2035, even though I want to scrap it. The simple thing is that I've been standing on behalf of motorists, truckers, bikers, and I've just watched London grind to a halt. And also, it's become unsafe. I've got a daughter 32 years of age who just will not go out at night anymore. And she certainly won't jump into an Uber at 11 o'clock at night because they don't take her home to her house because it's an LTN. So she has to walk the last bit because the Ubers aren't allowed in. So in essence, what's happening is we've got a pathological liar of a mayor. And that is what he is. He's a pathological liar. And a certain person who seems to respect what I've done over the last 15 years, a guy called Nigel Farage, you may have heard of him. He actually said, Howard, why don't you stand as London Mayor? And this was about a year ago. And I said, there's no way I'm going to do that. And here I am. I'm standing for Reform UK simply because I voted Tory for 50 years. I'm in my 70th year now. And quite honestly, I never expected the Tory party to move away from me. And that's what they've done. And Reform UK is the only one that truly has got Thatcherite policies, and I'm a true Thatcherite. So I'm here to get rid of this nasty pathological mayor, he's a mayor as well, pathological liar of a mayor, and I hope you will see support for Reform UK.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Howard. Laurence Fox.
Hi, everyone. I often... thanks, Howard, by the way,
That's all right.
for the 200
It's an
billion.
honour to be next.
For the 200 billion quid. I sort of often say that there isn't a political solution to a cultural problem, which may be validated by the fact that my mayoral candidate papers were invalid, despite being oversubscribed by at least 20% on each form, and the same people who did the proposition did it last time. But I'm not going to go off to conspiracy theory. But if I was going to stand for the mayor, but I'm going to stand for the Assembly, I would have stood on one ticket, which is to abolish the mayoralty in its entirety and hand back.
I agree.
and just hand back the power to the boroughs. Do you know what I mean? The boroughs know where you need to build housing, where the housing is available, and the boroughs can decide whether they want to get involved in Sadiq Khan's climate scam, ULEZ fiasco, and get rid of that as well, which I think should go immediately. He's just another layer of political, ideological bureaucracy. I polled Londoners in preparation for my mayoral run, and 37% of Londoners want the mayoralty abolished. So you may not like me, or, I mean, if Howard's going to stand on it, then vote for Howard, but as well, you may not, but, you know, get behind the idea that you need to have someone in there in City Hall that holds that corrupt little diminutive dictator to account. Also, 80% of Londoners want the position completely reformed. So our current mayor, with his team of many £100,000 a year diversity hires, is costing every single London household 450 quid a year, which I think is absolutely astonishing given how poorly London is run. And the state itself, more broadly, has worked its fingers into all aspects of our lives, from our children's education to all the speech codes that we have to apply at work, right the way through to that long sleep of death, where we get to go and play our hand with the very overfunded and very underperforming health service. We just need less of the state, is my general view about life as it goes. London and the nation more broadly are coming to terms with the repercussions of the multicultural experiment, which has been imposed on us without our consent. In fact, it's been imposed on us directly against our will. And we need to stand against these unelected politicians who the permanent unelected state who come up with these ridiculous policies that London has been facing. I've spent the last few weeks going to the Ceasefire Now marches and listening to the mostly peaceful calls for violence and the murder of Jews, which has been nothing short of astonishing and disgusting, capped off with yesterday's appalling behaviour by the Metropolitan Police. But the facts remain. In London, you've got a two-tiered political police force akin to every single other one which has come before, the Checker, the Gestapo, or the Stasi. And to those who say, sorry to dish your leader, big man, but to those who say, I will ban these marches, they've become the exact thing they accuse you of. If you believe in free speech and the right to free assembly, then you shouldn't be calling to ban these marches. You should police them properly. That's what should be done. And as we have Sadiq Khan as the Peace and Crime Commissioner of London, then the Metropolitan Police need to be removed from his care. They need to be returned to the Home Office for all its sins, instead of that nasty, he's just a nasty, divisive ideologue. Anyway, we've also got the diversity, equity and inclusion cult and their pals in the very racist, anti-racist movement, rammed down our throats at every opportunity and so adored by Sadiq Khan. But this has led to far more division, inequality and exclusion than we have known in the last 30 years. All of this is overseen by politicians, egged on by a liberal elite who do not have to suffer the consequences of their own idiotic ideology. And yet, in order to be invited to, or permitted to play in the game of politics in this country, one must dissolve one's principles in order to adhere to the establishment and its approved discussion platform. To avoid any mention of the cultural crisis being played out in Batley, Rochdale, Birmingham and London, where Jews fear to walk these streets and instead just toe a cosy and well-worn establishment line. So look, I'm not a politician, which is a great blessing for all of you. I am a concerned citizen, and that is why, despite the very dodgy handling of my mayoral nominations, I will stand on the Assembly, and I will hold Sadiq Khan to account every single time there is a mayoral question time for his appalling and risible handling of this city, which is destroying piece by piece. But I would also urge some caution. There are many so-called politicians who are more interested in power than they are in service and duty, and I suspect a great deal of us have had enough of the lot of them. Each promises the unpromisable, each establishment-approved party, indistinguishable as they all are from each other in their participation to this race to the bottom, are the same. An insurgency cannot succeed when its candidate selection is left to the approval of communists. And also a party who stands against decent and sensible Conservatives does so out of a desire for power rather than duty. Beware of Reform UK.
There you go.
London can be revived, but as is the English way, things will have to get a lot worse before they get better. Personally, I am tired of being inclusive to the machete-wielding thug community, or the terrorist-supporting mob community who chant death on the streets this afternoon. And I'm tired of progressive pride flags of the child mutilation cult flying proud, demanding observance across this capital city where one's own flag is almost too frightened to fly. So, if you vote for me on the 2nd of May in the London Assembly, you may just be voting to put a tiny bead of sweat on that nasty little corrupt mayor's brow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurence. And finally, that was a slightly elastic 5 minutes, doesn't matter. Amy. Yeah, Amy Gallagher, thank you.
Yeah, so I've lived in London my whole life. My family was based in London. My dad was a London taxi driver and he loved London. He was very passionate about London. And as many people know, I'm a nurse. I've worked in pretty much most of the major hospitals across London, and I've been a community nurse going into people's homes all across London. I've been to some really dodgy areas where I was lucky to get out alive. I've been to kind of some of the poorest people, some of the richest people. And I feel like most people, in the last 5-10 years, I have seen standards just in every area just slipping. London is more hostile than ever, it's scarier than ever, it's more divided than ever.
Yeah.
Yes, every area.
Sorry, Amy, I didn't know.
You vote SDP. Every area, you know, public transport, the police, everything just looks like a complete mess.
Do you want to try that?
Yeah. Is that better? I think every area is just a complete mess. And obviously, I think in the last 6 months, really, I think most of us are actually quite scared in a really serious way. People are thinking of leaving London, and it's my home. I don't want to leave it. So as many people know, I'm involved in a legal case against the NHS because the NHS has been totally corrupted by ideology, and I disagreed with critical race theory, and I'm still in the process of doing that. But obviously, as most people have seen, these ideologies are affecting everything, pretty much. So I decided to join the Social Democratic Party. We're a very small party, but we have some amazing policies on housing and crime, and all of those things and transport, and all of those things are really important. But the theme that I'm really running with for my campaign is standing up to woke, as Peter said. And many people will feel, you know, is that the most important thing? Is wokery just a side issue? But I feel that it's really important to highlight the issue of the politicisation of the two areas that the mayor really has power over, which is the transport system and the police. Because, you know, we are the cultural capital of the country, and London is arguably one of the most important and well-known cultural cities in the Western world. You know, America, what happens in London, you know, New York, Paris, America, Canada, everywhere, they look to London. So I think culture is so important. And as I said, crime and all the other things are really important, and we've got some great policies on there, but wouldn't it be amazing if we could be the first capital city that totally defunds the woke diversity industry across all our institutions? Yeah. So I want to completely defund the police of all the wokery, no more diversity, equity, inclusion. And not just that, because even if you try to remove these things, as many of us know, when there's a vacuum, woke will seep in. So what I want to do is actually implement training and in neutrality. So Sadiq Khan's big word is diversity, diversity, diversity. I want the big word to be neutrality. That would be the big word that I want people to understand better than anyone. So I would want, obviously most of us are seeing with the police and with transport, there's so much propaganda, so much two-tier policing. I don't want to promote any kind of, ideology. I want the police to just to police. If there's violence and antisocial behaviour in one protest or any other protest, that they will police that, and they will be seen not to endorse any political movement. I don't want them to endorse me or my political movement. I don't want anything. I want the world stage to look at London and go, wow, look at London, look how professional they are. We need to copy them. So that's my dream for London, and that's why I'm standing.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's quite good, isn't it, at a conference like this to actually have interaction with people who are actually standing for things as well. I think you can feel that kind of engagement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a mic or a couple of mics going around for questions for our candidates. Now, can I ask you, first of all, to keep them quite brief, because I'm sure people want to ask, but also do try to ask some of all three. That's only sort of fair. We follow the BBC here when it comes to fairness. So basically, try to ask all the candidates, all three candidates. If, however, you've got a question for just one of them, then just obviously fine. But questions for people standing for election here in London. Jim? Yep. The gentleman down here.
I just want to ask about the loophole with like knife crime and the age, when their kids are carrying machetes and they're 15 and they're not being, apprehended in the right way. I think we need to change, because if you're going to act like a man, you should be sentenced like a man. And I think a deterrent would definitely deter people from the easy-going nature of just like having a pack of bubble gum in your pocket, of carrying a blade. It's, that's what's happening. They know the law is not going to persecute them. And I've seen shootings and knifings, and they're getting support after it. It's sort of backwards.
Thank you, Howard first.
Yeah, it's interesting you saying that, because one of the policies I'm standing, I have three major policies, and on the crime thing, I agree with my colleagues here that police have got to do some policing, haven't they? That's the point. They've got to catch criminals. I've been on 31 anti-ULEZ rallies and protests in the last year. And I've spoken to the police who come and check on that we're not naughty people. And in the main, these are lawful people. Yes, they swear a bit, they're a bit vociferous. But the only time that we had a problem with the police was when we stood a campaign of anti-ULEZ protest in Tooting. And we all know who lives in Tooting, don't we? Sadiq Khan. And there were 200 police brought in, and they knew about this about 2 days before that we were going to be there, and we had 40 protesters, and they were arrested. There was a person who was about nearly 80 with his dog, just came along to protest and was put in handcuffs. And my point is, and this is where I totally agree with Laurence, they should, the police, Mark Rowley, I've written to him about this, and he hasn't got the courtesy to respond. And I did say, as potentially your next boss, as Police and Crime Commissioner, please give me the courtesy and tell me why you police that way. And I also will bring back intelligent-led stop and search. All those sorts of things which are massively popular and also will make our streets safer. And I'll also introduce a thing called police access points. As you know, 1,500 police stations have been closed in the last, I think it's 12 years, something like that. And these police access points will be accessible with police-manned areas in consumer outlets like 24-hour supermarkets and McDonald's and those places, so people can go to them. Now, you may think, hey, how's that going to cost? Well, believe it or not, I've spoken to the head of these supermarkets. They're happy to pay for them. Obviously, the salary would come out of the usual thing, the way the police are paid, but the actual manning of it and the facilities would be paid by Tesco's or Morrison's or whatever. And believe it or not, they said, oh, good, that could stop some shoplifting too, because we have a police on board. We just need some common sense and get police back to policing.
Laurence.
Sorry, Pete, can I just say one more thing? Over here.
I'm sorry, no, you let them answer now. Sorry, thanks. Okay.
Obviously, there's some very complex issues around kids and knives. And by the time they find these kids with machetes, it's often too late. There's problems with fatherlessness and single families and all that sort of stuff. But putting that aside, you've got to actually turn around and go, we need a deterrent. The way you stop crime is you deter it. So I would say, pretty simply, maybe you can nick this one, Howard, off me. How long is your average knife? About that? That's 5 years.
Well,
every inch more than that is another year
I agree.
that you're going to spend behind bars.
Actually, you stole it from me.
So Mr. Machete Wielder, you're going to be spending 12 years in jail, you man who uses knife to hide the fact that you've got a small phallus.
Amy.
Yeah, I mean, the knife crime is probably the biggest tragedy of London, and it always amazes me that we have so many protests for so many issues, but we never see a really big protest for knife crime. We have a massive protest for some guy that was murdered in America, and where is the protest for all the hundreds of young people's lives who are lost across London? It's devastating. We would, the SDP have some great policies on policing. I think along the lines of what Howard's saying, we want to increase stop and search powers. We want the police to be able to respond to operational evidence and not be hindered by political correctness. We want to increase sentences for people who who are violent towards the police or resist arrest. We just want a kind of zero tolerance approach to policing. Obviously, I think most people feel things have become incredibly lax. Nobody's scared of the police anymore. People just think the police are a joke. People think they're just kind of social workers now that just get involved in protests and wave rainbow flags, so we want to get rid of all of that. But I think we need to be honest that this problem is probably not going to be solved by the mayor, it's probably not going to be solved by politicians. It's a very deep problem, and there are issues with fatherlessness, with abuse, alcoholism, drugs, schooling, education. We need a reform of all of those. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word reform, should I? Another word. We need to, no, I'm not using reclaim either. We need a complete overhaul. We need a complete overhaul of all of those things, and I don't have the answers to that. But the things that we've talked about all today, like education, like history, like immigration, those are all part of the problem. So we do need a political party, or just. We need as a society to take into account all of those things, because it's not going to be one policy that changes this issue, unfortunately. And that's my thoughts on the matter.
Thank you very much, Amy. I think, actually, just one remark there. I was, when I was on the Assembly, I was on the Police and Crime Committee. What was obvious was that stop and search worked quite well, but they were just too squeamish about using it. They were hidebound by, well, we used to call it political correctness. It was as simple as that. But in fact, it actually worked well. Questions? This gentleman here. Thank you.
Thank you. On a slightly frivolous note, if any of the candidates are elected as mayor, will they be in a position to encourage a ring of church bells across the city every time the call to prayer goes out to Muslims?
Man.
Howard.
It's interesting. We've heard the word divisive from all of us today, and we've got a mayor that has divided ethnic groups right across the whole of Greater London. And I went last week. I was invited by the Muslim elders of the largest mosque in Western Europe, in Malden, and I was treated with some fantastic food, a history lesson of what the Islamic faith is all about. And I went with Ben Habib, if you all know Ben Habib. The two of us sat down. The red carpet was rolled out for us, and even with my shoes off and the socks exposed. The thing that got to me about it was that the week before I was at the Jewish Forum speaking to them as well. And there's this underlying suspicion of each other that is causing problems and fueling the division. And Sadiq Khan doesn't do anything about bringing them together. And that's my big issue about all of this. And to answer your question, yes, I've just written an article for a well-known paper, April the 23rd is St George's Day. I'm a proud Englishman. That's what the thing's about. And again, we are now, multiculturalism isn't working in London properly. And we need to have a mayor that actually brings cultures together.
Laurence.
I think the call to prayer and the marches that I've been on are a demonstration of force. The overwhelming majority of people who are on those marches are either are peaceful and they genuinely want a ceasefire, but there's a very, very sizable minority of people in their thousands who hate this country and hate everything about it, and who roll out a prayer mat on the bridges and call to prayer. So I just applied the very simple rule, which was, would you be happy with me singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing in Riyadh? And if you wouldn't, then stop praying on the streets of my capital city and stop arresting women for praying quietly outside of abortion clinics. So not only... It's one of the very few things I would ban, is I would ban the religiosity of anything in the public sphere. And I hate to say it, my answer to you would be no. I would not ring the church bells. I would ban any sort of religious extemporaneous stuff in public. It's no one's business. There may be atheists, there may be non-believers, there may be people of other faiths. Leave it. It doesn't belong in the public, horribly politicised public square as it is, my view.
Thank you very much, Laurence. Amy.
So I always associate London with freedom, freedom in the arts, freedom to move, freedom to meet people. So I would be very reluctant to institute any kind of ban on calls to prayer. But I do think what the question is speaking to is the broader kind of cultural shift that we have seen in London, and most recently in the last 6 months, which is terrifying. And the reason for that is for mass immigration. That's what we're experiencing. London is the casualty of mass immigration more than any other city in the UK. And we have a mayor currently who does not acknowledge the effects of mass immigration at all on London. It's just diversity is our strength. What we are seeing is it's put a huge burden on London in terms of the resources, in terms of the NHS, in terms of transport, and policing, of course, and crime, but more just our general ability to get along with each other. So what I would be doing as mayor is I would be just saying, look, London is full. Westminster need to do something about mass immigration, because culturally, these calls to prayer are going to increase over time. I think most of us know that. That's the direction things are going in. The mayor has no influence over mass immigration, but the mayor can have an impact in terms of the agenda and what people listen to Sadiq Khan, unfortunately, when he says things, because he's got such a huge platform. So we really need someone who can say, look at the harmful effects that London is experiencing through this cultural change. And that's what I would do.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask you, actually, as a follow-up to that, the three of you, how do you feel? What was your initial reaction to the Ramadan lights going up, Howard?
Well, frankly, it was very provocative. It was over Easter, wasn't it? And that Easter is probably the most important religious period for Christians. And yes, I was sickened by it. And again, I wrote to Sadiq Khan, and he didn't come back to it whatsoever. You've got to appreciate that Sadiq Khan is going to get into peril almost certainly because of this division he has. And that's the worry for all of us. And that's why I hope Laurence gets elected and we can sit working together and give him the hardest time he's ever seen.
Laurence.
I don't object really to the Ramadan stuff because I don't object to because he celebrates everything all the time, doesn't he? It's like he says he's a Muslim, but he loves transgender children. It's like, hang on, even I know more about your religion than you do, Sadiq. So I just think it's pointless virtue signalling. I'm much more concerned, not so much about Islam, because yeah, there are issues with Islam, but actually the fundamental issue is in June every year, we fly a flag in London on Regent Street that celebrates the mutilation of children. by this mayor. So I'd much rather get rid of this vile, disgusting child mutilation cult from this city than criticise a religion I don't know enough about.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, I mean, there's two options really. Either we just try to enforce complete neutrality, in which case we don't elevate any religion and we don't celebrate anything. But I think that would be a great shame, because we are a Christian country. And I think that if there's anything we should be promoting, it should be Christianity. I would like to see the mayor promote Christian values more and do more at Easter time and at Christmas time. You know, I think most of us are noticing that alongside the rise of Islamic rituals and events and ceremonies, we're seeing the decline of Christian ones. And wouldn't it be great, I mean, I'm a Christian myself, but wouldn't it be great if we could have a leader that would promote those values? It seems to be every other religion that is celebrated, and it's Christianity that's derided. And I really think it would be great to see London, celebrate its history, and of course part of that is Christianity.
Hi, I just wanted to add to what the gentleman over there was saying about knife crime and policing. Working in an educational setting, it's really difficult sometimes. If you look at behaviours, most behaviours are learned. And so to change that kind of looking at rules and following systems, at the moment in schools, what I'm seeing is that their children may well behave in an inappropriate way. There should be consequences, there's behaviour policies in place, but teachers are not given the ability to be able to follow through with those consequences because we're challenged by parents. And so the whole school system of what it is and what it stands for, children go there, you send your child to that school to learn these ways.
So what do you want the candidates to answer?
So what would you do to support teachers in implementing these consequences and being able to follow behavioural policies as to what happens? Because if they're taught about consequences of their own actions really early on, it hopefully will have an impact later on in life.
Thank you very much. Howard?
Well, the most important thing I've seen, as I said, I'm 70 this year, and I was brought up with corporal punishment. I was caned in my school and things like that. I'm not suggesting we bring that back, but I do want teachers to leave their politics at the door and focus on education, culture and history. And that's very important. And I also would like to see more police going into schools talking about values and the words we've used, a true deterrent, and what will happen if you do carry a knife or you do things like that. And that's what the police aren't doing. And this is very worrying to me because I'm not sure if you're aware, but at any one time, 10% of the police who could be walking, or bobbies who could be on the beat, are on the beat. That means 90% aren't on the beat. What the hell are they doing? Policing people like my tweets and his tweets and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, the teachers, I would actually put a lot of money into training teachers to teach.
While we're on the subject of the police, how would you deal with what is obviously now two-tier policing? Do you want to go, Laurence, on that one?
I'd take the police out of the mayor's control, give it back to the Home Office, terrible as they are, but it's one less layer. But in response to what you're saying in regards to teaching, I used to turn up at school and I was taught.
Exactly.
Now, everything, if you go into my son's school, it's like first attempt fail, first attempt in learning, or this, and it's all children are just taught that they're losers and victims. And therefore, that makes them speak to their elders like sort of disgruntled little entitled people. And actually what you need is the balance between the elder and the younger person, which is, I've been there, I'm 35 years older than you, trust me, listen, let's get on with this. And Howard's absolutely right. You get the politics out of school. I applied, and I urge anyone who's got children here to go onto the Bad Law website and send the letter off to the school and find out what they're teaching your children in school. Yeah. PSHE and RSE are indoctrination factories. That's all they are, and they are vile, disgusting Marxist indoctrination families. And what I would do is close the schools that teach those things and arrest the head teacher and have the children watch them being taken away for child abuse. It's time to take, really, I mean it. I mean it. It's appalling what they're teaching kids.
Amy?
Yeah. I think what that question speaks to, and I mean, I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been said on the panel, but it's kind of the erosion of authority, isn't it? So one thing we thought about, I mean, I like Laurence's idea of kind of abolishing the mayor, and it's something that we thought about, because we thought people are just sick of politicians, they're so incompetent, and wouldn't it be better if people could just have the mayoral budget back, you know, in their back pockets? Why, you know? But then I guess what I thought is that we are going through such difficult and uncertain times, and people are really looking for guidance, and we know that the things that we are worried about, as I said, they are all the more stronger when there's a vacuum. So what we really need, and I'd be saying this to everyone in this room, and there's some amazing people in here, that we all need to step up and fulfill those, you know, authority roles and show people how to do things differently. You know, we've got Alka here in the front row, who's an amazing spokesperson for Don't Divide Us and talks so much about education and the importance of neutrality. We need to all be, you know, elevating people like that, and there's people that spoke today, Rafe and Stephen and loads of people. We need to, you know, step up in those kind of authority roles and show that there is a different way. And I think all of us in this room are doing that. We are doing it. And we are growing, and we just need to do more of it. And it's slow progress, and it can feel so frustrating when the problem feels so immediate, and you're thinking, you know, young people are losing their lives, or they're not getting a good education. But all we can do is just show that there's a different way, and that's what I would do if I was London Mayor.
If you don't mind going on just for 10 minutes, we can take 3 questions. Yeah, hang on to... Adija, yeah.
Thank you, Peter. What do you candidates plan to do about the ghettoisation of London? You go into certain boroughs of London, like think of East Ham or Southall, you feel like you're not in England at all. The Englishness of these boroughs is completely eroded, and they don't even follow like English rules. You don't stop at traffic lights, and it almost feels like you're in a very cold part of India or Pakistan, and it seems like nobody cares about it, and the white population of these boroughs have emigrated. They don't live there anymore. So do you have any plans to deal with that?
Thank you. Howard?
It's interesting. It's an incredibly sensitive question, and I think very well put. When you talk to the actual Sage-like licensed black cab drivers, I asked them the same question about what would you do. And one of the things that Sadiq Khan's introduced is actually he's taken away the need to speak English. Uber drivers do not have to speak English. Now, the first thing about being in England, and it's a bit like the prayer mat on London Bridge or singing Herald's Odes in Riyadh. The fact is, if you're in this country, you have to adhere to English culture, and how we actually enforce that is the difficult thing. I accept that. But you have to educate again, and it's got to start with schools and education. And again, the police have got to do their job properly and stop hate speech and hate crime. So fundamentally, I agree with your premise. It's a difficult one to enforce, but this comes back to what I said earlier. Multiculturalism isn't working.
Laurence?
Well, thanks, Howard. That was, I would say it's a super complex question, because whether you like it or not, we've already imported this population. So one must look at this as an issue that needs to be spoken about rather than deport them or whatever. But the most important thing to remember is this is our home,
exactly,
and we have nowhere else to go. That's the most important thing to remember. So every time you see someone abuse the laws of your land, be it someone running up young girls outside of school, totally against our cultural heritage, be it running a red light, be it anything, you stand up and you say, this is not how we do things here, in the same way as you wouldn't walk out in a bikini on the streets of Marrakesh. You are in our culture, we have a definitive culture, respect our culture. If you don't like it, go and find the culture where you came from before and eat your heart out, love.
Amy?
Yeah, I think the solution, if there can be any solution, would be the constant promotion of British values. That's what we need to be doing in all our institutions. I mean, if you think of the Catherine Birbalsing's Makeda School, that's a very good microcosm of what we could do more broadly, and that she has, you know, as Laurence said, we've got all the people from different cultures here. What do you do about it? Well, Catherine's school shows that you can have lots of people from different cultures, Muslims, Hindus, but there is this overarching, you know, British values, which is what tries to keep them together. And I guess that would be what we would be trying to do more broadly across London. How we do that, I mean, it's a big question, but that would be what I would try to be doing across all institutions, is that British values would be, you know, supreme, I guess.
I think, thank you, Amy. I think just one question now, because it's getting very late. Emma.
Oh, no, Emma.
Howard, you said there, or implied, that you think that the police should deal with hate speech. So I was wondering if you could clarify specifically and legally what your positions are on freedom of speech.
You want to know what my definition of hate speech is, really?
Yes.
Well, you said that the hate speech was something that the police should deal with.
Yeah.
So
well,
I just wonder if you can clarify exactly what you mean by that, whether you mean incitement to violence or whether you're talking about hate speech in the sense that it's normally understood. So, for example, misgendering someone.
I think I see where you're going with this. I'm all for freedom of speech, so it's not the problem with that. But where it actually incites violence, it's got to stop. How you actually define that, I don't know. I was at Parliament Square that night when From the River to the Sea was projected onto the Big Ben Tower. And I also walked across and I felt scared and intimidated. I was actually going to GB News to meet Martin Daubney, would you believe? And I went across and there was these people in balaclavas, black balaclavas covering all their faces. And this projection, which is illegal on the public building to project. I went up to a policeman. And by the way, going back to your point, the hate speech was foul. And what they were saying about the Jewish faith and Jews generally was just unrepeatable. And it made me nervous and I felt intimidated. But I went up to a policeman who was standing there while this person was doing it, while they were projecting onto the side. And he said, we've been told not to do anything about it. And my point is that, where's that coming from? Mark Rowley. And who's Mark Rowley's boss? It's Sadiq Khan. And Sadiq Khan hasn't come out, like yesterday with that poor Jewish guy who was actually almost arrested. He was moved away by the police. You shouldn't be here because you're inciting. He had the freedom to be there. He should have been there. And I'm afraid I put the whole blame very firmly on Rowley and Khan.
Is this the man who was, the piece said, look visibly Jewish, you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry,
Laurence.
We've got to be super, super careful on this side of the argument, hence my, to much booze, criticism of reform. You don't fight fire with fire in this situation. You don't turn around and go, I will ban this, I will ban that, because the tenets of this country and the stuff that Amy's talking about and the British values are free speech. You don't have a democracy without it. These people should be allowed to march around with their little champagne socialist haircuts on and chant From the River to the Sea if they want to be able to chant that. And we should be able to robustly be horrified and mock them. That is what freedom truly is. By banning them, we're just right-wing wokists, and we should stop being liberal, conservative, right-wing wokists like Reform. Sorry.
Amy.
I think we could all stop by just scrapping the term hate speech. I don't think emotion. I don't think there's any place for terms like hate in the law. Emotions or feelings shouldn't be in the law. I think for me, the bar for what would constitute what people refer to as hate speech would have to be very high. So it would be like what Emma said in terms of incitement to violence, and anything beyond that would come under freedom of speech. So it would have to be, and I would just ban this kind of subjectivity within the law. I don't want hate to be policed. I think hate is a perfectly rational sometimes emotion, and expressing hate is something we do often. And I would just get back to policing, language that is a genuine threat to people's lives, which unfortunately we have seen a lot of over the last 6 months, and it hasn't been policed. So yeah, that's my answer.
Right, well, in the true spirit of a real Hustings, each candidate will have just 1 minute, and I mean 1 minute, just to say, you should vote for me because. So, starting with you, Howard, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I just want to make just a quick point from what you just said, Amy, is that I've spoken to a lot of people who were intimidated and scared and they don't go out because of those hate chants and hate speeches. So the police have got to do their job. That's all I'm saying. As far as voting for me, I'm standing on 3 major issues or policies. I'm getting rid of all of ULEZ right across London, not just the extension. 20-mile-an-hour limits, LTNs, speed bumps, excessively wide cycle lanes, and those hideous floating bus stops, they're going to go, etc. And I'm going to triple the number of bobbies on the beat, and I'm also going to triple the amount of affordable housing by reducing the planning blockades and taking the money from boroughs who are holding up in their NIMBY attitude.
Great. Laurence.
You should vote for me because I hate Sadiq Khan. And he's done everything he can to try and intimidate and run me out of this town. I know exactly what he's up to, and just to look him dead in the face 10 times a year, or however often it is, and go, "Excuse me, Mr. Mayor," is just going to be worth all of your time, money, and fun.
Amy.
So I, alongside probably all of the smaller parties, or the parties that are against Khan, will be standing for, building more houses, having tougher policing, fighting back on ULEZ, all the things that we hear about. But the thing that I would really like to lead on, as I said, is changing the culture of London, standing up to DEI, and showing the world that London is the professional place where we are making a change. We're already known as sort of Turf Island. We are pushing back on gender ideology in a way that the rest of the Western world aren't, and we are leading the way on that. So I'd really want London to lead the way on culture. I think that is what civilizations and cities are really remembered for. So all the other stuff is really important, but that is what would distinguish my candidacy from the others.
Thank you very much, Howard. Thank you, Laurence, and thank you, Amy. And they're all standing. It takes a lot of work and all the rest of it to stand, whatever your view on their views. So please, can we wish them all the very best? Thank you.
Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.